My name is Destiny Mack and I'm 40 years old. I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas on Sheppard Air Force Base. My biological father and my mother were married for a couple years before I was born, and they divorced when I was a few months old. So I never really got to know him till I was about 12. That's the first memory I have of really meeting him. My stepfather was with my mother from the time I was a year old until, now. So I consider him my dad. He's the one that raised me. He was in the Air Force as well. He was very strict, military, master sergeant. We lived on base shortly when I was very young. And so he would have strict rules about maintenance of our bedrooms in the yard. Well, we had military inspections in our yard when we lived on base, so everything had to be weeded and things like that. But our rooms, he would inspect our rooms very strictly, like military dorm room inspection, dust on the floorboards, dust on the ceiling fans, very strict. Actually was pretty lucky being a military kid. I didn't move around a whole lot. We moved from Wichita Falls when I was like 2, so I don't remember that. We moved to Abilene. We lived there for a year. And that's also in Texas, as Dyess Air Force Base. And then when I was 3, almost 4, we were stationed at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, which was pretty cool. I have a lot of really neat memories living in Alaska. We lived there for a long time, though. We lived there for 6 years, so I started elementary school there, and then we left there when I was in 4th grade. I think maybe I finished 3rd grade, and we moved back to Abilene, Texas. We got stationed right back to the Air Force Base that we came from. So, and then my father retired from there. I lived there until I was 20 years old and moved to Kansas City. I have really fond memories living in Alaska. I remember the wildlife a lot. We would have big caribou. We lived on base, so we would have big caribou, which are like big moose, that like the military police would have to come and like shoo them off of our playgrounds. And we would go ice fishing, and there would be like bear cubs that you could see like in the wild, and bald eagles. And then in the wintertime we would build snow forts, and we would make snow angels, and you would see the northern lights, and they were just amazing. It was just like magic, watching the colors just roll across the sky. That was probably the fondest part of my childhood. When I graduated from high school, my mom was leaving her job. She worked for a credit union. She was the manager of a credit union. And the software company that the credit union used to do their business was based out of Kansas City, and she ended up getting a job with them and moving here. And I was 18. I had just graduated. I was not going to leave my friends and everything I knew to come to a place where I knew no one. And so I stayed in Texas, and I got my own apartment. I graduated in May, and I moved out in September, I think. My parents moved up here, and I stayed. I worked 3 jobs. I was barely getting by, basically, and after a couple of years I had some things happen, and I just was like, I can't really do this anymore. I really missed my mom. We were very close, and so I just called my mom and said, come get me. So I pretty much gave everything that I had away because it wasn't really worth that much. And we brought with us everything that would fit in my car and theirs, and I moved up here in July of 1996, and I worked in a hospital doing admitting at the time, and I liked that. It was fun. I worked in the ER, and so I just applied at all the hospitals, and within a couple weeks I got a job at St. Luke's on the Plaza, and I've been working for them ever since. I met your dad working at St. Luke's. He worked for the cardiologist's office, and I worked in admitting at the time, in main admitting, and he would bring over their doctor's orders and the patients that were direct admitted from the doctor's office, and he would come to my office and bring them to me, and so that's how we met. It was working at St. Luke's. It was happy, it was challenging, it was dysfunctional. I had step siblings, I had a step parent, I had a biological father that wasn't really in the picture, that was kind of in and out. My stepfather was very strict. My mother worked. I didn't really see her that much. We were on our own a lot. Or I was left with my older siblings who we fought. There were definitely good moments and, bad moments, so it wasn't like terrible or anything. I survived.